Heads of world's biggest democracies meet and share stage once again. US President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Modi discuss defense, security, trade and investment. Relationship upgraded to comprehensive global strategic partnership. Leaders resolve to work together on terrorism and fundamentalism. European Union and Britain to start talks on their new relationship in Brussels on March 2nd. Second round to take place in London in March. Bloc's Brexit negotiator Michel Barnier says discussions, which will range from trade, security, foreign policy to other areas, would be complex, demanding, difficult, perhaps very difficult. Former Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak dies at the age of 91 after suffering from illness. He served as president for nearly 30 years before resigning as a result of mass protests that erupted throughout the country in 2011. Boisterous debate in Charleston, South Carolina. 7 Democratic presidential candidates unleashed their withering attacks. Joe Biden wins the endorsement of an influential black congressman from South Carolina. Let's now begin with news coming in from Asia. The crisis of coronavirus is no longer centered around China only. Focus of health observers is extending to South Korea, Iran and Italy that have seen sudden spike in the number of confirmed cases this week. Governments across the world are stepping up their efforts to tackle with COVID-19. That's the official name. Large-scale thermal screening, disinfectant screening is taking place in China. All educational institutions are shut in Japan. Saudi Arabia has suspended entry of foreigners from Umrah pilgrimage. South Korea and US have postponed their joint military exercise. Here's a roundup of the initiative by different countries and stakeholders.
The number of new coronavirus infections inside China was for the first time overtaken by fresh cases in other countries on Wednesday, with Italy and Iran emerging as epicenters of the rapidly spreading illness. United Nations Human Rights Guardian Michelle Bachelet urged the global community on February 27th to show solidarity with people of ethnic Asian origin subject to discrimination amid an outbreak of a novel coronavirus that started in China.
The coronavirus epidemic has set off a disturbing wave of prejudice against people of Chinese and East Asian ethnicity, and I call on member states to do their most to combat this and other forms of discrimination.
Governments are ramping up measures to battle a looming global pandemic of the coronavirus as the number of infections outside China for the first time surpassed those appearing inside the country. Chinese authorities said the number of new deaths stood at 29 on February 27th, the lowest daily tally since January 28th. The virus has so far claimed over 2,700 lives in China, most in the central province of Hubei. The State Forestry and Grassland Administration is also moving to expand the scope of protected wildlife and will revoke licenses for wildlife breeding organizations found to be breeding for consumption. Thermal screenings, disinfectant spraying and arrival registrations were underway for people entering the city through Shanghai railway station on Thursday to prevent the spread of the new coronavirus. Almost 2.3 million people traveled back to the Chinese financial hub by rail after the Lunar New Year holiday, according to Shanghai railway station. Saudi Arabia has suspended foreigners' entry for the Umrah pilgrimage and tourists from countries where the new coronavirus has spread as a growing number of cases outside China deepen fears of a pandemic. Number of countries who have been affected by the novel coronavirus have lately seen confirmed cases going up, prompting additional precautionary measures. These countries include South Korea, Japan and Italy. South Korea and the United States have postponed joint military drills until further notice amid a growing coronavirus outbreak in South Korea that has now infected soldiers from both the countries. The US military reported its first case of the coronavirus in a 23-year-old soldier based in Camp Carroll. In Japan, PM has directed to close all elementary, junior and high schools from March 2nd until their upcoming spring break to help contain the coronavirus outbreak. The Irish Rugby Football Union said on Wednesday it has postponed the country's Six Nations fixture against Italy due to the coronavirus outbreak in northern Italy, following a recommendation from Irish health authorities. The game was scheduled to take place in Dublin on March 7th, with thousands of Italian supporters, many from the regions most affected by the outbreak, expected to make the trip. In France, a second person suffering from the coronavirus died on February 26th. The 60-year-old man was already seriously ill when he was admitted to hospital in Paris late on Tuesday. In Iran, Deputy Health Minister Iraj Harichi said a member of parliament have tested positive for the coronavirus. The death toll in the country have also risen. Iran has ramped up efforts. Authorities ordered the nationwide cancellation of concerts and soccer matches and the closure of schools in many provinces. Denmark and Norway also confirmed first cases of coronavirus. DD India.
Let's now scan through some of the important updates vis-a-vis coronavirus that came up this week. Around 83,000 confirmed cases around the world have been reported. Nearly 3,000 deaths, most of them in China. But this week was also about how the disease spread outside of China. WHO has said that COVID-19 is not yet a pandemic. Pandemic is basically about diseases that uniformly spread across the world. It is still in particular parts in China and elsewhere that the concentration of the diseases. But the virus now is spreading faster outside of China. Earlier, China, Wuhan, Hubei were looked at as the epicenter. But now the rise, the sudden spike has taken place in Italy, Iran and South Korea. South Korea, in fact, has cases of over 2,000 confirmed cases that have taken place of coronavirus. Meanwhile, Iran is also on the cards of the highest number of corona cases. The United States, meanwhile, has granted a waiver as far as sanctions are concerned on Iran. In the context of humanitarian trade, we know the ongoing tensions, diplomatic and military, between the United States and Iran, but it has been suspended vis-a-vis the humanitarian aid. The infection in 50 countries, all continents except Antarctica. So all continents really have now got confirmed cases of coronavirus. We look at the countries that sort of represent the continent. Brazil confirmed the first case in whole of Latin America. Meanwhile, Nigeria also has confirmed a case. So Africa also is no longer really immune to coronavirus. Confirmed cases in all continents across the world. Now, the impact of coronavirus. Top businesses have taken a hit, and the demand has fallen from China. Microsoft, Apple, all of them, all big businesses in the world have connect with China. So when China is suffering and facing the biggest challenge, the demand is going down from there. So the world businesses are also facing the fear. The infection fear also threatens global air travel boom. We know that air travel really is the catalyst for global trade and also global economy. But in view of a lot of embargo, a lot of prohibitions for foreign travelers, global air travel has also suffered. Global markets have also panicked in the view of the rapid spread of virus outside of China as well. Whether we talk about indices in India, which dropped over 1,200 points on Friday. In the US also, there was 10% drop in S&P and other indices. So the markets have also not taken well to the spread of the disease. There is a particular call in order to immune the global markets, call for investment in developing resilience-related infrastructure for global risks, as and when such a health risk comes up. A global market, global trade industries should have that sort of an infrastructure to be able to resist it. There is a revival of focus and demand for such an infrastructure. The race is also on to develop a vaccination for the disease so that it could be contained in the future. But there is no good news immediately. The genetic makeup has been determined, but it will still take more time for human use. Animal testing and other such stages are taking place. But before we see a vaccine, the experts say it will take at least more than a year. Those were some of the highlights of what happened vis-a-vis coronavirus. Coronavirus, the deadly virus spreading out of China and South Korea, Iran and Italy becoming the new epicenter of this deadly disease. And after a leisurely visit to Ahmedabad and Agra, President Trump's next stop was New Delhi, where he held bilateral talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Largely, the focus was on defense, security, trade and investment. While a comprehensive trade deal will take more time to materialize, the two countries did agree on a defense deal worth $3 billion. Here's more.
These images at Hyderabad House indicate the level of ease shared by US President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Narendra Modi before the bilateral talks began. It was vividly clear from the chemistry shared by the two world leaders that both countries are ready to move ahead on all the important issues. The two countries discussed extensively on all aspects of bilateral relations, including issues of cooperation in areas of defense, security, trade and investment. Both the leaders termed bilateral talks as extremely productive at the joint press conference, where Prime Minister Modi also announced the decision to upgrade the relationship to a comprehensive global strategic partnership.
ये फिर से स्पष्ट हुआ कि अमेरिका और भारत के संबंध सिर्फ दो सरकारों के बीच नहीं है, बल्कि पीपल ड्रिवन है, पीपल सेंट्रिक है। यह संबंध 21वीं सदी की सबसे महत्वपूर्ण पार्टनरशिप में है और इसलिए आज राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप और मैंने हमारे संबंधों को कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव ग्लोबल स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप के स्तर पर ले जाने का निर्णय लिया है।
US President Trump also referred to the strong thread of Indo-US relations and said that the relationship between the two countries led by Prime Minister Modi has never been at the same heights before. Trump described the friendship as unforgettable, extraordinary and productive. The issue of terrorism and fundamentalism also arose in the talks, and both leaders resolved to work together on the subject.
Prime Minister Modi and I affirmed our two countries' commitment to protecting our citizens from radical Islamic terrorism.
आतंक के समर्थकों को जिम्मेदार ठहराने के लिए आज हमने अपने प्रयासों को और बढ़ाने का निश्चय किया है।
Both the leaders put special emphasis on taking defense cooperation to the next level. Prime Minister Modi said that defense and security cooperation between the two countries is an important part of the strategic partnership. Both sides have also agreed on a defense deal worth over $3 billion.
I know Prime Minister Modi will agree that this has been a very productive visit for both of our countries. Earlier today, we expanded our defense cooperation with agreements for India to purchase more than $3 billion of advanced American military equipment, including Apache and MH-60 Romeo helicopters, the finest in the world. These deals will enhance our joint defense capabilities as our militaries continue to train and operate side by side.
Leveraging their personal chemistry, Prime Minister Modi and President Trump have forged Indo-US relationship into comprehensive global strategic partnership, which has great potential to transform world power dynamics. With inputs from Sudhakar Das, DD India.
Let's now move on to news coming in from Americas. Joe Biden's flailing presidential bid received a significant boost on Wednesday following endorsement of a powerful South Carolina Democrat. This was hours after the former vice president declared during a turbulent debate among the still divided Democratic field that he would win the state. Biden still holds a narrow lead in the state regarded as a pivotal to his fortunes against frontrunner Bernie Sanders, according to the recent polls. At the debate, Sanders was targeted by most of his rivals over his record on gun control, his past comments on communist Cuba, and the ambitious spending plans for universal health care provisions.
It was a boisterous debate in Charleston, South Carolina on 25th of February. 7 Democratic presidential candidates unleashed their withering attacks. Sanders has taken command of the race after strong showings in the first 3 nominating contests in Iowa, New Hampshire and Nevada. In a debate that featured candidates repeatedly shouting over one another and ignoring their time limits, Sanders' opponents united in attacking the independent senator and self-avowed Democratic Socialist as a risky choice to lead Democrats against Republican President Donald Trump in November. Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren, who had been looking to jumpstart a campaign after poor finishes in Iowa, New Hampshire and Nevada, continued her onslaught on former New York Mayor and billionaire Mike Bloomberg.
In 2012, he scooped in to try to defend another Republican senator against a woman challenger. That was me. It didn't work, but he tried hard. And the fact that he cannot earn the trust of the core of the Democratic Party means he is the riskiest candidate standing on this.
Billionaire activist Tom Steyer warned that the party was headed towards danger with either Sanders or Bloomberg on top of the ticket.
This conversation shows a huge risk for the Democratic Party. We are looking at a party that has decided that we're either going to support someone who's a Democratic socialist or somebody who has a long history of being a Republican. And let me say that I got into this race because I wanted to fight for economic justice, for racial justice, and to make sure we had climate justice for the American people. And I am scared. If we cannot pull this party together, if we go to one of those extremes, we take a terrible risk of re-electing Donald Trump. That is a risk that will hurt the American people in a way that none of us on this stage should be willing to risk.
Pete Buttigieg, the moderate former mayor of South Bend, Indiana, criticized Sanders for the shifting estimates on the cost of his proposals such as government-run healthcare and questioned how he could get his agenda passed.
Let's do some math. Senator Sanders at one point said it was going to be 40 trillion, then it was 30, then it was 17. It's an incredible shrinking price tag. At some point has said it is unknowable to even see what the price tag would be. Now there are new numbers going. I'll tell you exactly what it adds up to. It adds up to 4 more years of Donald Trump, Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House, and the inability to get the Senate into Democratic hands. The time has come for us to stop acting like the presidency is the only office that matters. Not only is this a way to get Donald Trump reelected, we got a House to worry about. We got a Senate to worry about. And this is really important. Look, if you want to keep the House in Democratic hands, you might want to check with the people who actually turned the House blue. 40 Democrats who are not running on your platform. They are running away from your platform as fast as they possibly can.
Sanders largely held his ground. He defended healthcare as a human right.
Mayor Bloomberg has a solid and strong and enthusiastic base of support. Problem is, they're all billionaires. On the other hand, of the last 50 polls that have been done nationally, Mr. Bloomberg, I beat Trump 47 of those 50 times. If you look at battleground states like Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, polling just
the polls aren't the election.
I beat Trump. And if you want to beat Trump, what you're going to need is an unprecedented grassroots movement of black and white and Latino, Native American and Asian people who are standing up and fighting for justice.
Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden won the endorsement of an influential black congressman from South Carolina. U.S. Representative James Clyburn's endorsement carries weight in a state where African Americans make up about 60% of the Democratic electorate and where Biden is counting on a good showing after a 4th place finish in Iowa, 5th place in New Hampshire, and 2nd in Nevada. With Bureau Input, Global Scan Desk, DD India.
From Americas, moving now to Europe. The European Union and Britain will start talks on their new relationship in Brussels on March 2nd, and they will go through March 5th as well. The bloc's Brexit negotiator, Michel Barnier, said that the second round would take place in London later in March, adding the discussions, which will range from trade, security, foreign policy to other areas, would be complex, demanding, difficult, perhaps even very difficult. Britain left the EU on January 31st after more than 3 years of torturous divorce talks, greatly complicated by sensitivities around the Irish border, the only land frontier where the bloc and the United Kingdom now and with a past history of violence. With both sides talking tough ahead of negotiations, Ireland warned that even a basic trade deal would be impossible by the end of this year if London does not honour border obligations under its exit deal. And Julian Assange appeared before a British court on February 23rd to fight an extradition request from the United States that wants to put the WikiLeaks founder on trial for hacking government computers and violating espionage law. Assange is wanted for crimes that put at risk the lives of people in Iraq, Iran and Afghanistan who had helped the West, said a lawyer acting for the United States in its bid to extradite the 48-year-old. United States asked Britain to extradite Assange last year after he was pulled from Ecuador embassy in London, where he had spent nearly 7 years holed up avoiding extradition to Sweden over sex crime allegations that have since been dropped. Assange had served a sentence in Britain for skipping bail and remains jailed pending the US extradition request. We now look at stories from Africa. Former Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak died at the age of 91 after suffering from illness. Mubarak, who was born in 1928, started to serve as the Egyptian president on October 14, 1981. He served as president for nearly 30 years before resigning as a result of mass protests that erupted throughout the country in the year 2011. He was also jailed for years after the uprising on charges of corruption and complicity, killing of protesters, but was later freed in 2017 after being acquitted of most charges. Now, a quick roundup of the other major developments across the world in Speed News.
In Syria, at least 20 civilians died in regime strikes on targets including schools in a relentless advance on the country's last major opposition holdout that saw loyalists seize a symbolic town. Pro-regime bombing killed at least 9 children, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said. Regime strikes in Idlib, the main city in the densely populated, ever-shrinking enclave of the same name, killed a school child and 3 teachers as well as 2 others. About 10 Tyndinaga Mohawk campaigners were arrested by the Canadian police for shutting down the train track from British Columbia, seeking to stop construction of a gas pipeline over their land. In response, the protesters blocked train lines, Vancouver's port entrance and at least one highway. Demonstrators mounted a rail blockade at a junction of the 3 busy Canadian National Railway lines near Hamilton, southwest of Toronto. Indian origin Suella Braverman has been appointed as the new Attorney General of United Kingdom. She was administered the oath in Royal Courts of Justice during a ceremony. 39-year-old barrister Suella said that her motto is to retain the trust of the people in judiciary. A swarm of locusts in millions invaded Mogorva in Baringo County, some 200 kilometers west of the capital Nairobi of Kenya, sparking fear in a region that highly depends on livestock farming. The locusts, aided by southwesterly winds, blanketed the skies of the village, causing panic among the locals. Mexico's mighty Popocatépetl volcano erupted out with a dramatic show of lava and ash column rising into the night sky. According to reports, a massive column of gas and rocks was above the volcano's crater. Popocatépetl, aka El Popo, which is 5,426 meters tall and is the 2nd highest mountain in Mexico and the 5th highest in North America, is among the most active volcanoes. Hollywood's big shot producer Harvey Weinstein has been convicted of sexual assault and rape but cleared of the most serious predatory sexual assault charges. The jury found the producer guilty of criminal sexual acts in the 1st degree and rape in the 3rd degree. A Manhattan judge ordered Harvey Weinstein to remain in custody until his sentencing, scheduled for 11th of March. Global Scan Desk, DD India.
Time now to go back in time and see the world from the prism of history in History Scan.
On February 25th in 1964, Cassius Clay, popularly known as Muhammad Ali, knocked out defending champion Charles Sonny Liston for his first world title. He became the world heavyweight champion in Miami Beach in Florida. On 26 February in 2012, a constitutional referendum was held in Syria. In response to the Syrian civil war, President Bashar al-Assad ordered a new constitution to be drafted. The referendum was not monitored by foreign observers. It was on 27 February in 1990, Nelson Mandela arrived in Zambia on his first foreign trip since his release after 27 years in South African jails. On 28 February in 1935, the first successful synthetic thermoplastic polymer nylon was produced. The first example of nylon was produced using diamines by Wallace Hume Carothers at DuPont's research facility at DuPont Experimental Station. DuPont began its research project in 1927. It was on Leap Day on 29 February in 2012 that the construction of Tokyo's Sky Tree was completed. The building became the tallest structure in Japan, making it the tallest tower in the world. It also became the 2nd tallest structure in the world after Dubai's Burj Khalifa. Global Scan Desk, DD India.
And time for Showbiz, where we bring you all the buzz and updates from the world of art and entertainment.
The most celebrated film festival of Germany, the Berlinale 2020, is drawing towards an end. The 70th edition of the program covers a sweeping mix of 71 countries, including South Korea, India, Iran, and the Czech Republic. Amid this, India is leaving no stone unturned to woo international filmmakers. On the sidelines of Berlinale, the Indian delegation held a discussion with the delegation of Cannes Film Festival. The discussion involved positioning India much more strategically at Cannes. Cannes expressed their collaboration and participation for the 51st edition of IFFI. The Indian delegation also met representatives of European film market. Berlinale 2020 offers a total of 342 films screening in 9 different categories. The films include Berlin Alexanderplatz, Schwester Lane, and Hillary, a documentary on Hillary Clinton. In another major development in the world of entertainment, Bob Iger announced his resignation from the post of Chief Executive Officer of Walt Disney Company. He will be replaced by Bob Chapek, who previously ran the company's Parks and Products division. In the world of music, pop sensation Justin Bieber has added another feather to his cap. With the release of his album Changes, he didn't just top the US Billboard chart, but also broken a record set by legendary singer Elvis Presley. The 25-year-old Bieber became the youngest solo artist to score 7 #1 albums in America. Elvis Presley set the record at the age of 26 for Blue Hawaii. Global Scan Desk, DD India.
Now, as we conclude, it was quite a spectacle when several schools of Rio de Janeiro paraded through the famed Samba Drome, a competition celebrating Brazilian dance. Summoning costumes, elaborate floats were what grabbed the eyeballs as dancers paraded through the excited crowd. Pick up some dance moves. Goodbye for now. debate and